established rich coming right back at you. Sometimes you don't find out how a person feels about you until they forget to be polished, until they forget to be strategic, until they forget they on camera. And that's exactly what happened between Anton Daniels and Kwame Brown. Because this beef, it didn't start with disrespect. It started with defense. Kwame was actually defending Anton, saying he didn't agree with Corey bringing Anton's kids into the situation. He was basically saying, nah, Corey went too far. And what happened next is where this story turns. Anton is on stream. Somebody in the chat mentions Kwame's name. And without even knowing what Kwame said, without even watching the video, without even taking 5 seconds to understand the context, Anton starts firing.
What's wrong with Kwame? He talking mad crazy. What is he saying? What is he saying? Tell me what he's saying. Kwame and Carcino is talking crazy. Yeah, Kwame Brown is super biased. It's sad to say lost a lot of respect. Oh, he's talking about me negatively? Well, I mean, listen, if I'm not mistaken, Kwame Brown used to be on my nuts. It's the honest to God truth. Hey, man, I like what you're talking about, bro. I like it. Used to be all on my nuts. All the time. I'm keeping it 100. But I understand that Kwame Brown, after his whole thing with Gilbert Arenas, and from a business perspective, his whole thing with Gilbert Arenas, his whole thing with Stephen A. Smith, Kwame Brown caught a wave. He caught a wave, and that's how he was able to build up his platform to get to whatever his subscribers is. But Kwame Brown hit a ceiling. Because what we all realized was that Kwame Brown wasn't as good as the wave that he was riding. So now, what is he doing? He's trying to figure it out. He's trying to figure out the content side. He's trying to do all of this. He's trying to do all of that. And I respect it. I respect the game. That's the name of the game. He's not able to grow his platform based off of his own analysis, based off of his own content. And so, you know, he do these dusty live streams where it's just him off camera. Yeah, because you know me. And it's cool. You know what I'm saying? So Kwame get the stimmy pack like everybody else. But you know what's embarrassing is because Kwame is supposed to be better than the dusty niggas that he's spending all of his time hanging around. What are you doing panels with randoms that you don't even know? That's for regular everyday people like me that didn't have the back. I see why Jordan was like, man, this nigga soft.
Got to get back to training. Not for basketball. I got to train for these dudes that run their mouth, but they like chicks. So they got to go get other bad dudes. So I got to train now. You're supposed to be the manly man, the bag chaser. And what I watched happen was somebody in a chat tell you that I said something, right? You didn't see nothing I said. You immediately invite me to your lower part. That's what you invited me to. I don't know what your fetish is with men, but I have the text message and the conversation that me and you had when you said you wanted to do an interview with me and you said you wanted to fly me out. And I heard a video of you telling another man, I'm going to fly you out like one of my chicks. So guess what I told you? I said, nah, I'm going to drive. I said, I'm a different type of cat. I like to drive. Remember I told you that? I'll come to you. Don't worry about it. But then after I start seeing more of the way you bit, run your mouth like that. And I realized, I said, no, your male bravado is caught up in money. It's not caught up in masculinity. See, if you was masculine, you wouldn't be running around here starting fires with people. You speak when spoken to. Now, what I did was, and shout out to Corey Holcomb. I do not agree with Corey Holcomb putting his hands on a woman at all. But shout out to Corey Holcomb for at least being man enough that you put this out on the internet. He didn't come and look at my page and go, F you, Kwame, you doing this, you a sucker, you was on my, you know what? He didn't do that. Guess what? I gave a fair assessment of what I saw. And it's called an opinion, you so-called smart guy. I forgot, you said you was a C student. You may be more like an F student. You're gonna sue Corey Holcomb for doxing your daughter, right? Which all he did was put up the picture, which is bad. He put a picture up, never said the child's name or nothing. Guess what you did? My daughter such and such right here, y'all. She's the #1 athlete over here. Yeah, this is my daughter. She #1 over here. You said your child name. You did. You're so in tune with your family. You're such a in tune father that while your daughter is so-called going through the worst time of her life, you're listening to other people in the chat and you're responding to YouTubers that could potentially talk about her. Myself. The only thing I said was a fair assessment. I said, you shouldn't have been microaggressing a man, and you should have used your intelligence and control the room. You didn't. You didn't use any intelligence that you claimed.
Listen, that was unprovoked, and that's the part that matters, because that wasn't a response. That was a reveal. That was Anton telling you what he really feels about Kwame Brown. Not when he's prepared, not when he's polished, but off guard. And you can't unsay what he said. You can't apologize later. Apologies don't work when the things that came out your mouth was how you really feel. What came out was not a misunderstanding. It was contempt, disdain. It was him basically saying, I don't respect you. And that hit different because Kwame was defending him. And Anton didn't even care enough to find that out first. He just went straight to how he really felt. And that's where this story stops being about Corey and starts being about Anton's true character. Because when somebody says somebody mention your name and your first instinct is to think negative, that's not a mistake. That's a window. And people saw straight through it, including me. Because I used to listen to Anton like a year ago, but I stopped listening to him before any of this even happened. Because everything became about money, money, money. Looking down on people who don't have what he has. Speaking from a place that felt like he was above everybody else. And it just started feeling different. It started feeling like the content was geared towards a certain type of person that wasn't me. So I stopped watching. But this moment right here confirmed why. Because when you hear him talk about Kwame, you didn't hear a man misunderstanding a situation. You heard a man who been feeling that way. And now he finally said it out loud. Here's the part people skip over. Kwame is not even in Anton's lane. Kwame do his own thing. His own platform, his own audience, his own style. He ain't trying to be the #1 YouTuber. He ain't trying to be the most corporate. He speaks his mind. For fun, for therapy, or just to have fun. Because Anton looks at YouTube different. YouTube for him is status. YouTube for him is validation. YouTube for him is proof that he's important. Proof he made it. Proof he's smart. Proof he's above everybody. And when you look at Kwame, he's the opposite. Kwame don't care about none of it. And sometimes that irritates people more than anything. Because when you trying hard to be something, and somebody else just is, without trying, it hits a nerve. And when Anton started talking, he didn't sound like a man who was confused. He sounded like a man who was fed up. Fed up with how people see Kwame. Fed up with how Kwame moves. Fed up with the fact that Kwame can say whatever he want without worrying about polish. And he can't. That's why it slipped out. He started insulting Kwame's platform, Kwame's friends, Kwame's reach, Kwame's purpose. This clearly was not about Corey. This was personal. And here's where it gets lazy. Anton apologized.
If I jumped the gun, then I'm man enough to say that I jumped the gun, and I shouldn't have. And so let me take responsibility for that. However, what I do think happened is that I also probably brought out what people was really thinking, but they wasn't saying it until I jumped the gun. So it is my fault and my responsibility if that's the case. If he hadn't said anything up to that point, then that's my fault, and I apologize for that.
But the apology don't hit because the first reaction is always the real one. You don't say somebody was on your nuts by accident. You don't say he hit a ceiling by accident. You don't say he should have a bigger platform by accident. That's how you really see him. And Kwame heard it. And the internet heard it. And now the mask don't fit the same. Because this whole time, Anton is framing himself as the logical guy, the business guy, the above it all guy. But when he got triggered, he talked like everybody else. And that's what changed how people see him, not the Corey situation. Because this wasn't about defending his family. This wasn't about him protecting his daughter. This was him showing his true feelings about another black man who never disrespected him. And that's why this whole situation matters more than people think. Because it ain't just about Corey. This is about what happens when a man's image cracks in public. Anton built a brand on discipline, logic, being above the chaos. But when he got pressed emotionally, he talked just like the people he critiques. Insults, ego, disrespect, and that's human. But the internet don't forgive human. The internet remembers. And now people see him different because when Kwame's name came up, he didn't respond like a man who was confused. He didn't respond like a man giving Kwame the benefit of the doubt. He responded like a man who been holding that in. And you can't unsay what your heart already said. The apology don't erase it. It just confirms you realize you let the mask slip. And here's the part that's hard to swallow. Kwame was actually defending him, saying Corey was wrong for bringing up his family. And without even watching, Anton went straight to disrespect. That's not miscommunication. That's a reveal. That's how you really feel about him. And people watching could feel it. This is why this story hit. Not because it was loud, but because it was honest. And you know what else? Anton saying, I don't play by street rules. Nobody asked him to. Corey messed up by mentioning his family. That gave Anton the moral high ground. He could have just stood on that. He could have won without saying anything. But emotion made him lose position. And that's the lesson. You can be right and still lose by how you respond. Now look at the bigger picture. Anton cares about status. Kwame don't. Anton cares about perception. Kwame don't. Anton cares about being known. Kwame cares about being left alone. And sometimes the man who don't care ends up looking more grounded. This whole situation exposed something else. Not about Corey and not about Kwame, but about Anton. It shows what he really thinks about people who don't move like him. And once people see that, they can't unsee it. That's why this story has stuck around. Not because of the beef, but because of the reveal. Because people don't remember what you correct. They remember what you exposed. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe, establish rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.